Hello, everyone. I see some attendees starting to trickle in. Thank you for your patience. I will just give it another minute before introducing the clinic this afternoon and then introducing Sandy for her presentation today. Thank you all for joining us. And for those just joining us, I'm going to give it one more minute before we get started this afternoon. I'm just waiting to see if we have any people coming in for their lunch breaks to log in, and then we will get started. Thank you for joining us. All right, let's get started. I was able to catch a few more people. I always want to say good morning. I don't know why. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special education legal clinic. Thank you for joining us today. We will be discussing, as you can see on the slides, hopefully in front of you, children transitioning from early intervention to preschool. The Special Education Legal Clinic is a public-private collaboration between 3 independent organizations. First is Abner Weicker, which is where I'm from, and I should have introduced myself. My name is Renee Stromsky. I'm the clinic director. Disability Rights Ohio and the Ohio Coalition for the Education of Children with Disabilities. We present workshops on the 3rd Monday of each month from noon to 1 p.m. unless otherwise noted. And then afterwards, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., immediately following the group workshop, we have individual guidance sessions with attorneys where you can ask us any questions you can think of related to special education. Like I said, today we are talking about children transitioning from early intervention to preschool, but our clinic next month is on Monday, June 16th, and will be presented by our firm, Abdenauer Weicker, and it will be on addressing bullying and harassment of special education students. You can sign up for individual guidance sessions and our workshops at lawyers4students.com /legal clinic, lawyers4students.com /legal clinic. And we also, Abdenauer Weicker is also hosting in July, on July 17th and 18th, our annual Student Rights Conference that will be held virtually. And you can sign up for that at the same website, lawyers4students.com /SRC, and I'll drop the links to both the legal clinic so you can sign up for our next session or for all of our sessions, as well as the Student Rights Conference in July. Like I said, today will be hosted by Sandy Brickner from OCECD, the Ohio Coalition, and she'll be talking about that transition from early intervention to preschool, and she's got a lot to talk about today. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the Q&A. If it is, and the rest of the attorneys that are on the panel right now will answer them if we can during the presentation, and try not to interrupt Sandy so she can get through and make sure she stays within her time. But if there's anything that we can't answer, we'll let you know, and Sandy will save some time at the end of her presentation to answer any extra questions or any of those unanswered questions. As always, we have closed captioning available, and then this workshop is recording right now, and it can be accessible at the lawyersforstudents.com/legal clinic. Within the next week, hopefully the next couple of days, that should be uploaded, as well as a link to hopefully when you received your invitation to today's workshop, you also received a nice handout of information and resources from Sandy, as well as a copy of this PowerPoint, so you can follow along at home, or you can look at it after our presentation today. I think I have everything covered. Like I said, drop Q&As in the Q&A, or drop questions in the Q&As. I'll drop the answers in there. And from there, I'll turn it over to Sandy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Renee. As Renee said, my name is Sandy Brickner, and I'm the statewide preschool program coordinator for the coalition. And we are a statewide nonprofit organization. We serve families of infants, toddlers, children, and youth with disabilities in Ohio, and as well as the educators and agencies who provide services to them. So we are a coalition of over 40 parent and professional disability organizations and over 70 individuals. So we've also been federally funded since 1984 as the Parent Training and Information Center, or PTI, for Ohio. And as a PTI, we provide a variety of services, including one-on-one support and assistance, workshops and webinars like this one, publications, and a website with many resources. I started my career as an early childhood educator and quickly had a preschool of my own in our home. My husband and I have 5 sons, of which 2 qualified for special education services. And they're grown with families of their own now. And so I've been through that special education process both personally and within the scope of my job for over 25 years. The majority of the coalition staff are parents of children with disabilities. And because of that, we bring both that personal experience and expertise to the work. So we're going to talk just briefly here about the things that we're going to learn today. We'll start by defining transition and also identify the 3 important times for a child with a disability when transition can occur during their educational career. We're going to discuss the differences between early intervention and preschool special education. And this information will include the law that provides an entitlement for children with disabilities to receive services, the age ranges for each, eligibility and evaluation requirements, and then who's responsible for providing these services. We're also going to take a look at the transition planning process and the benefits of that process that are designed to help children transition from early intervention at the age of 3. We'll go through the transition planning conference and include information on what happens if your child is suspected of having a disability and needing preschool special education services. We'll also talk about the evaluation process for preschool special education, the evaluation requirements, and who's involved in that process. We'll identify some timelines associated with the evaluation, and then we'll wrap up having tips, parent tips that might be helpful going through that process. I have a boatload of slides here. I do not plan on getting through all of those within this hour's time, but I provided some at the end just for you. They're self-explanatory, but those parent tips that can be helpful for families. First of all, I want to begin by defining transition. What is it? And transition can be described as a time of change. And if you look at the dictionary, Merriam-Webster, transition is defined as a passage from one state, stage, subject, or place to another. Transition also is the process of planning for a change in your child's services from one system to another, and all the activities that are required to provide for that change. If you, as a parent, and your child are transitioning from early intervention to preschool, parents usually have a lot of mixed emotions about that. It's one of the most common things that parents tell me when they call and they're talking with me about that process. They don't really know what to anticipate going into preschool. And sometimes they feel most of the time, they feel very unsure about this change. Like, how will I know everything? Or how will I know the right decisions to make? And there can be a lot of pressure with thinking I need to know all the right decisions to make. That's all normal, and I think all parents go through this. So parents are moving from a system and a set of services that they know to one that might be completely unfamiliar. And they're working with new people, trying to learn how the new system works, and at the same time trying to make those right decisions that will best help their child to learn and grow. And when we just say those words like right decision, it adds that pressure. I like to say making a good decision. Sometimes there's a couple right decisions, and so making that good decision is important. It can feel a bit overwhelming, but as you follow along with me through this training, I want you to know that there are resources and supports to help you through the process. We're going to have a lot of dry information, important information, but you'll have resources to refer back to and resources to call. We're here for you. You're not alone. So now that we've talked a little bit about what transition is, let's talk about when transition occurs. Parents and children with disabilities can be involved in planning for the transition of their child at three important times during their child's educational career, according to special education. And that first transition may take place when your child turns, from early intervention and transitions into preschool. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today. Those early intervention services will end when the child turns 3 years of age, and then eligible children may transition to preschool special education services at that time. The second transition takes place as children transition from preschool to school age. And when I say school age, I mean when children are enrolled in kindergarten. Eligible children may receive preschool special education and related services beginning at the age of 3 through 5 years of age. Preschool services typically end when a child turns 6, which is the compulsory school age in Ohio. And then that third transition takes place as we prepare students leaving high school and then transitioning out into the adult world. Beginning at age 14, we start to plan for the student's transition to life after high school. Youth who graduate or reach 22 years of age are no longer eligible for special education services, and so these youth transition to adult life and they may receive services out in their community at that time. That seems like a long time away when we're thinking early intervention and preschool, but it goes very fast. So we're going to take a closer look at the differences between early intervention and preschool special education. You do have a handout that has a side-by-side of all of this information. It's a nice, quick, easy reference for you. So the state agency that's responsible for early intervention in Ohio is the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities. And the state agency that's responsible for preschool special education is the Ohio Department of Children and Youth. Early intervention is administered through a local agency, and that is the lead agency for early intervention services in the county. And you may know this agency as Help Me Grow. Children must be determined eligible through their local early intervention system. Preschool special education is administered through the local educational agency where the child resides. And that local educational agency, or LEA, is another way of saying the school district where the child resides. And children must qualify for services through their local school district. Early intervention provides specialized services that help families meet the developmental needs of children from birth to 3 years of age. And early intervention services end when the child turns 3. Preschool special education is available for children from 3 through 5 years of age. Early intervention is family focused. It's a collaborative home community-based system where the family and the team work together to provide ongoing support to the child. And early intervention services and supports help the family to meet the developmental needs of their child, such as learning to sit up, walk, or talk. Early intervention builds upon and provides supports and resources that help parents and caregivers in enhancing their child's learning and developmentally, their development through everyday routines. Preschool special education services are child-centered. So we have family-centered with early intervention and child-centered with preschool education. And these services are individualized to the child's unique needs, and they're meant to help the child learn the skills needed to prepare them for kindergarten. Our nation's special education law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, what we call IDEA, addresses the needs of children with disabilities starting at birth through 21 years of age. This is the governing law also for early intervention. And there are several sections to that law. Part C of the law focuses on children from birth to 3, and this is early intervention. And often you'll hear it referred to as Part C services. The governing law for preschool special education can be found in Part B of the same law, IDEA. Part B is often referred to as the school age part of the law, and it focuses on children ages 3 through 21. It's important to note that there are different rules and regulations for Part B services and services under Part C. So we're going to talk about a lot of these rules and regulations in this training. Parents and others across the state can make referrals to early intervention by calling the Help Me Grow Central Coordination Site, and you can see that number here on the screen. And the other way to make a referral is to contact the local lead agency in the county that's responsible for early intervention services. You can find a list of those contacts on the Ohio Early Intervention website, and that's ohioearlyintervention.org. That's also in your handouts. They have a map that allows you to click on the county where you and your child live, and it will list the contact for early intervention services there. It's real easy. It's right there on the home page to find. And in addition to that, it's possible to do an online referral from the website. And there's a link it's actually in the PowerPoints, but it's also in the handout with the training here. Parents and school staff or the public agencies can refer children they suspect of having a disability and who may need preschool special education, and they make that referral to the child's school district of residence. That's that local educational agency. So children don't just automatically, if they're in early intervention, qualify for preschool special education. We must suspect a disability and come to a determination through an evaluation process that we will be talking about here. In early intervention, infants and toddlers are focused or offered more of a multidisciplinary evaluation to determine their need for early intervention services. That multidisciplinary just means that the child's assessments will involve people from different types of work who have different types of knowledge and expertise. Some examples are a speech language pathologist, a physical therapist, or an early intervention specialist. And this family-directed assessment identifies the family's resources, the family's priorities, and the family's concerns, and all of the supports and services that are necessary to enhance the family's ability to meet the developmental needs of their child. That assessment is not a one-time deal, it's ongoing, and that, as I said, is focused on the family. If a preschool age child is suspected of having a disability, a multisensory disciplinary team of professionals conducts an evaluation. So we're going to gather information from multiple sources about the child's functioning and development in all areas of suspected disability or delay. So in preschool evaluation, you see that word again, multidisciplinary. And you may be asking yourself, okay, what's the difference here? But basically, both early intervention and preschool special education require testing that is carried out by a multidisciplinary team. And the information that's gathered helps us to understand the child's skills and their needs. The process and the testing used to get that information is very different. After the multidisciplinary evaluation is completed, there are two ways in which a child is determined eligible for early intervention services in Ohio. The first, the child has a diagnosed condition that is highly likely to result in a developmental delay or disability. Or the second, the child has a documented developmental delay. To be determined eligible for preschool special education services, the child must meet the criteria as a child with a disability under one of 13 federal disability categories or the category of developmental delay. Developmental delay is the one category that is different than the other 13 for the fact that you can qualify from ages 3 through 9, not through 21 like the other 13 categories. This would be a time for the team then to consider the child to see if the child would be qualifying under one of the other categories. The child's disability must affect their performance and ability to participate in developmentally appropriate activities. As a result, require special education and related services. And that's specifically the law saying that. Now let's take a look at the document that describes services in both EI and preschool. An EI, an Individualized Family Service Plan, or IFSP, is the document that identifies the family's strengths, priorities, and needs. It's a comprehensive document that includes all the services a child may need and their sources of funding. In preschool special education, an Individualized Education Program, or IEP, is the document that identifies the educational goals and objectives that the child will work on over the next year. It also includes all the special education and related services that a child will be provided. And all the services identified in the IEP are paid for by the school district. Really, anything related to the child's special education program should be paid for by the school district. In early intervention, the IFSP team makes decisions about needed services. And you can see listed here all of the IFSP team members, including the parent right there at the top. In preschool special education, you'll still be working with a team, but the team is the child's IEP team that makes decisions about needed services. And the IEP team includes the members that you see here, including that parent as an equal member of the team. In early intervention, the child's services are provided in natural environments, such as their home or in another setting where the family and the child spend time together. Preschool special education services are provided in the child's least restrictive environment, and we refer to that as LRE. As part of the process of determining a child's LRE, there must also be an explanation of the extent, if there is any, to which the child will not be participating with children who do not have disabilities. As you can probably see by now, early intervention and preschool special education do have some distinct differences. And now that we've covered some of those differences, I think it's important for us to go over the transition process so that you're familiar with that too. Why do we do it? Why do we plan for the child's transition? That transition process is designed to allow families and others enough time to put a meaningful plan in place. And this plan should assist the child in making a smooth transition to preschool services as they exit early intervention at the age of 3. Federal law requires all states to have in effect policies and procedures for the transition of children from Part C, early intervention programs, to preschool programs. If the child will require preschool special education services, the transition planning process should ensure that there aren't any gaps in services once the child turns 3. This means that if the child is receiving EI services and is evaluated and determined eligible for preschool special education services through an individualized education program or IEP, that IEP should be developed and implemented by the child's 3rd birthday. And if the child's third birthday occurs during the summer months, the child's IEP team would decide when the child's services would start, and parents are an equal member of that team. There are a lot of benefits associated with transition planning, and I'd like to go over a few of those now. And so, through the transition planning process, you should be able to meet the school district's representatives and learn more about preschool special education and identify a plan for addressing any concerns that you may have about the child's transition, discuss possible services for your child at age 3, plan for activities that would lead to determining if your child would benefit from an IEP, and identifying any additional assessments that might be needed. This is a good time for parents to help parents, I guess, understand the eligibility criteria for preschool special education services and arrange times to visit any programs that the parent may be interested in. And we'll talk more about that later. So we're going to take a look at when that transition process starts. And you may have conversations about transition before the age of 2, but the official conversation must occur at the IFSP meeting closest to the child turning 2 years old. However, if your child is determined eligible for EI services after 2 years of age, transition will probably be discussed with you right away, and for parents, and it may occur at your child's initial, very first IFSP meeting. The service coordinator will explain what transition is, how the process works, including how to involve the local school district in the process. So if the child is suspected of being eligible for preschool special education services, this is what to expect. Your service coordinator will be very helpful with that. You should know that school districts must be notified of children enrolled in early intervention who might be eligible for preschool special education services and who will potentially transition within that next year. School districts receive these notifications 4 times a year. It's February, May, August, and November. And early intervention must have parents' consent or permission before they release any information about your child outside of that EI system. And this includes notifications sent to your school district. That notification would include the child's name, birth date, parent's name, address, and telephone number. So with the parent's consent, that notification to the school district must take place at least 90 days before the child's third birthday. And as I said before, it informs the district that the child might be eligible for preschool special education services. If the child is determined eligible for EI services at or after 24 months, they would be asking for parent consent to share this information right away. Parents don't have to give consent for this. This is definitely, you know, their decision. As part of the transition process, parents will be asked to give consent for a transition planning conference to be held and to invite the conference representatives of any programs where the child may transition to. So this would, could be the local school district or Head Start childcare programs. So if the parent agrees to the transition planning conference and they wish to have a school district rep there, uh, you will be asked as a parent to provide written consent for your child's records to be released to the school district. And the service coordinator will identify what records they would like to release and to whom. So you're part of that process of what will be released to the school district. One thing you should be aware of, and sometimes comes up when I'm talking with parents, is about children who are referred to early intervention 45 days or less before their third birthday. And it's important to know that these children are not required to be evaluated by early intervention services, nor is there any requirement that EI services be provided. There's just not enough time. This means that, unlike other children in EI who transition to preschool special education, there really is no requirement to have preschool services in place when the child turns 3. early intervention will ask for parents' consent to refer the child to the school district right away, or they'll explain how the parent can make that referral. So we're going to focus on that transition planning conference, the activities that can take place if a parent wants to pursue that preschool special education services. At the transition planning conference, these following activities will be taking place. First, the school district rep will provide you, as a parent, a copy of the Ohio Procedural Safeguards Notice called A Guide to Parent Rights in Special Education. This notice is required by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. And IDEA protects the rights of students with disabilities and the rights of their parents. This guide tells parents about their rights and must be provided at certain times. The school district must not only provide a copy of procedural safeguards at certain times, but it's more than that. It's ensuring that a parent understands what the rights afforded to them and their child through IDEA. And parents who are not native English speakers, this may require the district to provide a written translation or the services of an interpreter. The process of notifying the school district that a child may have a disability is called a referral, and the district must document the date of that referral. The referral date starts a timeline. And if a school district is invited to a transition planning conference, then the date of that conference is the date of the referral if it occurs within 150 days prior to the child's third birthday. Here we go with more numbers and days. So if the school district is invited to that transition planning conference and they don't attend, the school district must document that date of the conference as that referral date. So whether they're there or not, that is the date of referral. And that will determine the child, having this initial evaluation to determine the child's eligibility for that IDEA Part B special education and related services. Also, the school district must get back to the parent in writing within 30 days, calendar days, of a referral or request for an evaluation. This is called a prior written notice. And that prior written notice will tell the parent what the district intends to do. Are they going to go forward with the evaluation or are they not? And why they came to that decision. They must also ask for a parent's consent to conduct an initial evaluation within that 30 days if they do decide to go forward with the evaluation. So this is true for this initial evaluation, and it's true, for initial evaluations for sure. Okay, so the school district representative may work with you and the referral source, which in this case is early intervention. And to complete the referral for evaluation, that's a form, PRO4, or discuss a time when it may be completed. And this form documents the date of the referral and is the day on which the 30 calendar day timeline begins. And parents, along with other members of the team, will review the child's records and discuss whether the child is suspected of having a disability. And the school is also responsible for conducting a full and complete evaluation of the child if a disability is suspected. After a thorough review of the child's records, careful consideration of the team's discussion, the school district rep will determine if there is enough information to suspect the child of having a disability. If there is not sufficient evidence for the district to determine the suspicion of a disability, they may discuss with the parent the need to collect additional data. So the school district rep is going to make the final decision about whether or not the school district will proceed with an evaluation of the child. If the school district does not suspect the child of having a disability, they must provide the parent with a prior written notice form describing the district's intention to not go forward with the evaluation and the reason for that decision. And that form, that prior written notice form, is part of your handout, so you can check that out. If you disagree with the district's decision not to go forward with an evaluation for the child, as you as the parent, you may use the dispute resolution options, and they are identified in that a guide to parent rights and special education to help to resolve this disagreement. The a guide to parents' rights and special education is part of your handouts as well. If the school district does suspect your child of having a disability, they'll provide you with a prior written notice also describing their intention to go forward with the evaluation. So either way, you should get that notice. So it's clear if they do suspect or don't. Now, if the transition planning conference is held more than 3 months prior to your child's third birthday, the school district representative may notify the parent in a prior written notice of the evaluation occurring closer to your child's third birthday. So as long as that is all taken care of and services are in place by their third birthday, that's the goal. So we're going to talk briefly now more about that evaluation process for preschool special education and what is required. An evaluation of your child is the process used to gather information that will help to determine if the child has a disability and will require special education services and the child's educational needs. So it's not just about qualifying, it's about knowing and understanding the child, their needs, so that they can be supported appropriately. It's required before a child can receive special education services, and this requirement is based on federal law that governs special education services through IDEA. In addition to federal law, we also have specific requirements in state law. So the local school district where your child resides is responsible for that evaluation, and it is referred to as an initial evaluation since it's the first time the school district has evaluated your child. Many school districts like to screen a child prior to determining if they will go forward with an evaluation, and parents are sometimes confused about this. Sometimes they think that the screening is the actual evaluation. So, however, everyone should know that screening cannot be used for evaluation purposes or for determining a child's eligibility. Screening can be used to indicate the need for further assessment. And what that means is that the school district can use the screening process to determine if they should go forward with a full and comprehensive evaluation of your child. So this is what the operating standards say about the evaluation process. No single source of information, such as a single measure or score, shall be used to determine if a preschool child is eligible or not eligible for special education and related services. Word for word, what operating standards tells us. Multidisciplinary. Your child's evaluation must use multiple sources of information gathered from parents, teachers, school psychologists, therapists, and others. And in addition, the evaluation should use multiple methods of gathering information. And we're going to look at the evaluation planning form in a little bit so you can see more of that. The evaluation should consider your child's performance in different contexts and situations. And what that means is considering the child's performance in different settings, like your home versus a school setting, your child by themselves versus how they interact with other children in a similar age. So this entire team should be involved in planning, conducting, and interpreting the results. This includes parents, teachers, school psychologists, therapists, and whenever possible, it's incredibly helpful for the team to include someone who has worked with the child already, someone who knows them and can provide input on the child's strengths and needs. This person might be a therapist who is involved in providing EI services or an EI specialist. Here are some of the evaluation requirements. Um, we need information collected from early intervention, structured observations in more than one setting and during multiple activities. So this should include an observation of your child in a setting or an environment that is familiar to them. And the parent and or the child's caregiver, rating scales, Anecdotal records, and these are like short stories that describe the child's behavior or performance on a given day and time. Work samples, portfolio assessments. This can be a collection of examples of the child's interactions with his or her environment, with peers, teachers, and it shows what the child has learned or how they've progressed over time. All these things are helpful to understanding the child. And also norm referenced and criterion referenced assessments. These are types of tests that compare the child's performance to the average performance of other children who are the same age or that measure the child's performance against some standards or criteria. Okay, a physical examination by um, a licensed medical doctor, if the child's disability is primarily the result of a congenital or acquired physical disability. Um, the same with a vision exam and an audiological exam for a child's disability is primarily the result of a hearing impairment. There are, and it's really ideally, it's best to have a pediatric audiologist, an educational audiologist who works primarily with children as opposed to adults to help get a clearer picture. It's important to emphasize that an evaluation cannot go forward without evaluation planning and an evaluation planning meeting. And in addition, the school district cannot proceed until they have received your informed consent for the evaluation to occur as a parent. They need that informed consent. And what this means is that before the district can move forward with the evaluation, it must first receive your permission to do so as a parent. Informed written consent means that the parent understands what the district is proposing to do, the parent agrees with the action that is being proposed, and parents are giving written permission for that activity to take place. Evaluation planning is not only a required piece of the evaluation process, but it's an important piece as well. It's the foundation of everything. And during that planning meeting, parents and other members of the team will work together to determine what assessments are needed to determine eligibility and to plan for the child's education. It can happen through a face-to-face meeting or not. That's not required. It can be held virtually or by phone or email. But the parents must be included in the process, and the school must document their attempts to involve the parent. The parent must be fully informed about all the information relating to the evaluation, and the results of the meeting must be documented on the evaluation planning form. Here's that planning form that you can see here, and it's, because you could say it's a blueprint for the child's evaluation. In the upper right is a box that would be checked indicating this is an initial evaluation, and there's another box that documents that this is the child transitioning from Part C or early intervention services. All the tests, assessments, and observations that will be conducted are documented here, as well as who will perform each one. Also, you can see that the evaluation plan for children who are transitioning from Part C EI must include data from Part C about your child's growth and development. And then the team will consider the different disability categories and check any of those suspected disability categories that may pertain to the child. It's important for families to share copies of any medical reports or private evaluations that they have that the parent may want considered as part of the school's evaluation. And it's important also for families to know that schools are not required to provide the full amount of services for things like, different therapies, like speech therapy as an example, that are recommended in those private evaluations that maybe the parent has paid for. Even so, this information is extremely helpful for the team to consider. The process of gathering and reviewing all of this information will help in determining the child's developmental and educational needs. At the end of the whole process, the school district representative signs, and then the parent will be asked to sign as well. And here you can see a copy of that parent consent for evaluation form. I include this because when I talk with parents, they often are confused about whether the child is receiving an evaluation for special education or not. They may have given the school permission to do a screening, as we talked about before, and an observation of their child, and then they think that's the evaluation. As I said earlier, screening should not be confused with an evaluation, and in fact, it cannot be substituted for an evaluation. Screening can indicate the need for further assessments, and most of our schools do screen preschool aged children before deciding if they will proceed with a full evaluation. So, as parents, if you've completed this form, you know that an evaluation will be conducted, and this is where you provide your written consent for the evaluation to take place. Once you provided your written consent, the evaluation must be completed within 60 calendar days of the date on which your consent was received. And you should ask for a copy of this form for your records. And actually, it's really good practice for parents to get into the habit of asking for copies of all of your child's paperwork and keep that together in a file. School districts must conduct evaluations through the school year and even during the summer months if necessary. As I said, that's 60 calendar days, not 60 school days. There's a lot of paperwork and forms that need to be completed prior to the evaluation taking place. And on this side, you can see the various required forms that we talked about today as we discussed going through the process and each of those forms that are required during that process. This gives you a quick checklist of all those forms, and we have a sample of each of the forms provided for you in your handouts. You can check those out. It's nice to be able to be familiar with forms, and that the first time you see them isn't when you're expected to make other decisions. Once the preschool evaluation planning form is completed and you've signed that parental consent for evaluation form, the evaluation process can then begin. So we're going to recap here of what I call the Big Ten here. These are the steps that start with the request for the school district's involvement at the transition planning conference, and they end with the parent consent for evaluation. So we're not going to review those. They're here basically for you to use as a guide for you, a quick snapshot of what the guide is for that process. And then the other slides help go into more in-depth detail about timelines and other information. Here's the last 5 of those Big Ten. So for parents, the parents that are here on the call, I want to say to you that your input is very important. Don't underestimate the value that your participation adds to the discussion and to the decision making that takes place during your child's transition to preschool services. Parents, you bring knowledge and an understanding of your child to this process that no one else has. It's a unique perspective and an important perspective. So the following are parent tips that I think might be helpful to you as you go forward through this process. And it's a nice little thing to keep and to as a reminder as you go through not just through the early intervention to preschool process, but if your child qualifies for preschool special education services, it's important information for, all those, the years that are coming forward for you as well. Thinking about your child's strengths, needs, and concerns that you may have. Prioritizing your concerns as to what's most important to you. There may be a lot of things on your list, but it's important to know what things you think you absolutely must have for your child and those things you may be willing to let go of, or that maybe they can wait till another time because there are a lot of important, things on your list. Asking questions and not hesitating to request all of the information that you need. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a meeting with a parent who let me know outside of the meeting that they had lots of concerns, but when they actually got in the meeting, they really went silent. Don't be that parent. It's okay to speak up, and the team wants to help you to have the information you need. There's no such thing as a silly question. And in fact, your question there may be other people at the table that are very interested in the answer to that question as well. Know about the program options available in your community. And once you've identified some of the interests, um, to allow enough time to go and visit. And many times I've heard from parents how important it is to do your homework in this area. And they may have been set on a particular program that a friend or a family member assured them was the best program, the perfect program. But when they did take a closer look for themselves, decided they wanted to look around some more. Your child is unique, and there are, different things you may be looking for than maybe your friend's family is looking for. You always have options, so make sure you have as much information as you can about each of those options. I can't tell you the number of families I've worked with that after they were able to take a look at a program, it really helped open their eyes and to whether it was appropriate or not appropriate, and with specific reasons why. And that brought a lot of I don't say power, but empowerment, I guess. Um, when she came back to, as a parent, coming back to the team and sharing their reasons for or not for specific programs. It's a way to help make more informed decisions. Know about your rights and responsibilities, and remember this: an educated parent is an informed parent, and an informed parent is an empowered parent who can be the best advocate for their child. Being informed brings empowerment. And consider obtaining parent-to-parent support. No one has to do this alone. And we here at the Coalition are here for families. We see ourselves in our parents and what parents may be experiencing with their children, and we want to help. Um, that's why we're here, and we all have a passion to do that for our families. School personnel are experts in education, and parents are the expert in their child. Making the determination about your child's services requires careful thought and consideration. And when we work together and we have an opportunity to benefit from everyone's expertise, it just helps the team to make the best decisions possible for the child. And in the end, it is the child who will benefit from the most. It's teamwork, everyone bringing their expertise, and the parent bringing their own unique perspective and expertise on their child. All right, so each of you should have this as a handout. And if you'd like more information about the special education rules or early intervention rules in Ohio, these are links to the resources. And it's located here within the PowerPoint that you can click on, and also in the handout. So you'll see the special education rules, the operating standards in Ohio, the Ohio Department of Children and Youth, their website with information, early intervention information. It's a great resource that you can refer to for more information and being that empowered parent. So I thank you for staying with me through this entire presentation with lots of information. I know it was a lot to cover, and I hope it was helpful for you. Um, if there are parents that are on the call, if you have specific questions relating to your child and your situation, or or a family, another family, please consider contacting us so we can connect you with someone within our organization who can offer you more individualized support and take time for you. Um, you can see our contact information here on the screen, and we have staff that cover all 88 counties in the state, and they're ready to assist you. We want to make sure that you get the help you need, and by reaching out to us in that way, we can take all the time necessary to go over everything with you. We all care about our families and your children, and we want to help with that. So we probably, if we have some questions, we can go through questions. And there is an evaluation. You see the QR code here on the bottom corner to fill out an evaluation. We'd appreciate that as well. Renee, do we have other
I
questions?
was just going to say thank you so much, Sandy. That was an amazing presentation. I know that I learned a lot, mostly because my practice focuses on when students are already in that preschool age. So it was helpful to learn about some of those key differences. We did not have any questions during the presentation, which I contribute to your thoroughness in your question in your presentation, because I mean, I thought you did such a fantastic job. I apologize if you hear the dogs barking in the background. I do have a question though, since we have a little bit of time. What are some common challenges that you see families facing during the transition, and how do either you help support the families, or how can the state or local teams or the district teams help support families?
The first thought that comes to my mind when you ask that question are parents that are um, maybe frustrated because they thought their child would qualify for services, preschool special education services, and the school district has said that they do not suspect a disability. That is probably one of the number one calls that I get from families and helping them then through that process. I think sometimes, they've experienced, and another thing that goes along with that is when they're in early intervention, it really is so family focused. And they're so used to the whole family is involved. It's really wrapped around what are the family's needs, what are your priorities, and all that involvement. And then I think it's, kind of assuming that if they qualified for early intervention services, that now they will automatically receive preschool services. And that's so not, does not, always happen. So that's suspecting a disability. And that's why we talk a little bit in here about if the school district does not suspect a disability and will not evaluate, or say they don't have enough data, that to ask, to gather more data to help with that process. Um, so that's one piece to gather more data to make a more informed decision. But also we talk to families too about um, is there enough data to show that they may qualify for a Section 504 and receiving accommodations and going in that direction as well. So that's a couple ways that we try to support families with that. And and I think I did a training for a county, the SSAs, and they were finding the same thing, the same commonality within their county, having those difficulties of suspecting a disability and then doing the evaluation for preschool.
Yeah, and I'll say with my practice, at least, or our practice, we definitely see a lot of concerns of family coming to us where, they believe their child should qualify for some services, but unfortunately they don't for whatever reason. And um, yeah, so thank you. I really appreciate it. And we still don't have any questions, but I believe, Sandy, you said you put in on that last page of the PowerPoint and on that handout that we sent to everyone, some information on how we can contact OCECD if we have any questions or any, more personal level questions too. So thank you again for your presentation. And we will be beginning our individual guidance sessions right now, but just for everyone's awareness, thank you again for coming. Next month, again, will be on Monday, June 16th, and it'll be addressing bullying and harassment of special education students presented by Abner Weicker. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you so much, Sandy. Really appreciate it. You did such a wonderful job, and take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.